Hey coaches, there's a couple thoughts that I'd like to share with you, and I've often ended up having this conversation with other coaches who are getting started on this path of coaching with integrity, who have read the Prosperous Coach, and they're trying to figure out how to get from where they're currently at to this, like, I charge $25,000 per year for coaching stage. And one of the traps that I often see people fall into is not having a sense of what are the stages between where they're at and these really impressive models, really impressive pricing. People will either read the Prosperous Coach and say it's like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's just like, that's not the way that I want to work. That's too expensive. Or they'll see it and they'll try to do that immediately and try to leap to just like start walking around telling everyone it's like, hey, I charge this many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for people to coach with me. And they end up with no clients. They end up not making any money. Or maybe that happens once, but then it never happens again because they never created a system. There's several layers to this work, and each of these layers is exercising an important skill set. And it's all built on top of service still. But I've noticed that there's a usual natural progression from like the very initial stage of learning how to coach, being in a training or something where you're not even charging money, it's not a business yet, and eventually getting to these later stages where you're very creative about how much you charge, what you're charging for, what your business looks like, where it's a complete creative act. So I'd like to walk through a couple of these ideas, and these are not like hard and fast stages. They overlap with each other. And feel free to dub me wrong about these stages. And sometimes, yes, you can skip steps, but it's also really nice to know, have a map where you can identify where am I right now in my coaching business model? Where am I right now in how I am pricing my coaching? And what's a next step after that that actually feels attainable, where I have a sense of knowing what skill set I am currently working on to get there, so that it's not leaping across a chasm as much as like walking across a bridge, doing the work. So, the stages. To begin with, there's that stage of training in coaching. It's really important, I think, to spend at least a year, if not many years, if not like 3, 4 years, just find a way to be working on becoming great at serving people one-to-one without worrying yet about turning that into a business, without worrying yet about adding the skill set of an entrepreneur. Unless you're already coming in as an entrepreneur, then you can accelerate. But give yourself plenty of time to first become a great coach, to develop some of that confidence that when you sit down across from someone, they'll get value, and having some sense of you can make a difference. The more you develop that, the more quickly you will succeed commercially as a coach as well. And it really helps to initially not be worrying about the money, to be coaching a lot, to be just coaching people as much as possible, and to be coached as much as possible. Learn from other coaches, their style. Learn from the experience of being coached yourself. So any trainings that have a co-counseling type model, I'm a huge fan of. I recommend multiple trainings. Like, don't be a one-trick pony. Don't do just one type of coaching. Combine multiple. See what happens when you have very different kinds of backgrounds and you can bring something unique into the world of coaching. I encourage you to develop a love of coaching, before you try to turn it into a business, before you try to opportunistically be thinking about, it's like, okay, well, how can I make money at this? It's more like, this is awesome. I love this so much. I want this to become my career. I want you to make sure that you have the passion before you try to turn it into money as well. So coming out of the gates of training, don't worry so much about making money or making a living at coaching. Some people are able to like make that leap and it's like, okay, I'm going to try to make a living at this really quickly. For most coaches, that's actually going to spell disaster, because they end up being needy. They end up trying to make a living right away, right out of the gates. And unless you're living pretty minimally, that's a huge challenge. It often takes, even along this path of coaching with integrity, a year, 2 years, 3 years to get to that point where you're making a totally stable, prosperous living off of coaching. Because there's a lot of work between here and there. Hopefully, with this group, with these tips, this is actually going to accelerate that. Maybe it can help you reduce that to a couple months. But in this stage, post-training, where you're going out and meeting people and offering them coaching, find some other way to make a living so that you don't need the coaching to succeed commercially out of the gate. And so the next stage after training is, after you've been given in training, usually you're surrounded by people and friends who you get to coach with. This next stage is a stage of lots of free coaching still. But it's developing that skill of going out in the world, meeting people, connecting, finding the kinds of people that you love to coach, finding the kinds of networking, the kinds of communities that you want to be in, and offering those people free coaching. And it really is as simple as going out, meeting people or meeting people online and listening with that coach's ear. And when you hear that they have some sort of problem, some sort of issue that you might be able to help with, you simply ask them, hey, would you like help with that? And you can offer them free coaching. Develop, because that's an important skill set. Usually when you're so worried about how much should you charge or trying to make the money, that skill set is missed. I want to acknowledge that this can be a difficult skill set, both going out, meeting people, creating community, finding people to help. That's a skill set to really develop. So don't worry about making money yet while you're developing that skill set. And you'll know when the next stage is coming. The next stage is when it's time to start charging for coaching. And I think the key signal that this stage has begun is when you've been out meeting people, coaching people, and they're starting to come back. They're starting to ask for another session. Or they start asking the question, hey, what does it look like to keep doing this? Or can we do this again? Or they ask you, how much do you charge? That's when you know you have a business. That's when money starts coming into play. So then there's this whole skill set of just being able to charge for coaching. Most people, not everyone, most coaches will have all sorts of money mindset issues come up at this point. What am I worth? How much should I charge? Which sort of model should I use? And I recommend at this stage both getting coaching yourself. The more quickly you can work on your money mindset, the more quickly your business will progress. And as a business model, as a pricing model at this stage, keep it simple. Feel free to use the more like therapy style model of pick an hourly rate, something that you're actually willing to charge, and charge that rate or charge per session. Start with something low enough that you'll actually say that rate. Again, in this stage, do not be trying to make a living at coaching, because that's really going to get in the way of you developing this skill set of just being able to charge for coaching and learning all the things that happen within sales at this really low level. And also, it's often very difficult to make a living from coaching when you're only charging by the hour, if you're only charging by the session, because after each session, like, that might be it. You might get one session paid for a client and then they're done. So you end up needing to meet a lot of people and enroll a lot of people. You end up giving away a lot of free coaching just for one paid session. So the ratios aren't good there. It's not really a good place to be making a living. Some people can pull it off. They're usually exhausted coaches, and they're usually looking to get to the next level. So I recommend staying in this stage of gifting initial coaching sessions. If they want more coaching, they're coming back to you, then you charge per session. And once you feel comfortable charging per session, or once you are running out of time and most of your calendar is filled with coaching, both free and paid, that's where you get that extra bit of room to go to the next level. And the next level is, instead of charging per session or per hour, charge for a duration of time. What I did here is I charged per month when I first experimented with this territory. And it was kind of cool because I picked a monthly rate. And what I actually was doing for a while is, like, every time a client said yes and signed on for my monthly rate, I raised my rate a little bit. Sometimes I raised it by $10. Sometimes I'd raise it by like $50 or $100. It's like, okay, I charge a little bit more per month. And at this stage, where you're learning to charge for ongoing coaching, you start to learn that the value of coaching isn't limited to just what happens in the session. Both you and your clients realize that the value of coaching isn't what happens in that hour, hour and a half, 2 hours that you spend together in session. It's what happens between the sessions. It's the value that they get from having a coach. It's the value that they get for having some of that in-between support. It's the value they get for being in this energetic relationship of coaching. And that's where you're really stepping into this more advanced, prosperous coaching with integrity field. And that's also where both you and the client start to realize the real value of coaching. That, I don't want to overstate it, but that it's so much more than the time that they spend with you in a session. There's some times where I've had 2-hour sessions where it felt like we still didn't quite get there. And there's some times where I'd spend just 10 minutes with someone. They talk a little bit, and I'd ask a question, and then we'd just laugh for 15 more minutes because we just hit something so deep. It's not the amount of time that you spend with the client. In fact, if you're able to deliver a powerful insight, if you're able to inspire them into action, if you're able to help them shift their life and have them go forth from a session, if it takes less long than that session is usually scheduled for, they just saved a bunch of time. So they're not paying for your time. They're paying for being in a coaching relationship for you. And they're paying for the transformation that happens when they're in that relationship. You'll start to realize in this stage of paying for ongoing coaching, it doesn't matter so much how much time they spend with you, how frequently the sessions are. You start to get more creative. Maybe you'll have sessions every week, maybe you'll have sessions every other week. Maybe for some people you'll have a session just once per month. You'll figure out what's best for that client. And it's going to be based on what helps them transform, what makes the biggest difference for them. So this stage of charging for ongoing coaching, it naturally expands into these multiple month programs, 2 month, 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, 1.5, 2 year, and it gradually grows. And I recommend like stair stepping up. So try offering as your biggest program. And I do recommend leading with your biggest program first. So if you've never done a 3 month program, offer 3 months. Get a sense for how much of a difference a 3 month program makes in someone's life. Offer a 6 month program. Get a sense of how much does their life shift from working with you for 6 months. Then you can extrapolate to like 9 months, 12 months. It's valuable to sort of like gradually up the duration so you get that sense of how much a new client might transform if you're offering a really long program. And you also might start to realize you don't want to work with someone for that long. Or you might want to hedge your bets. You don't want to end up with a client who's just a so-so client for an entire year. You actually might intentionally not let them sign up with you for a long program until they've done a shorter program. And so there's a stage after this as well. After the paying for ongoing coaching, longer duration coaching programs. And this is just the very generic catch-all stage of get creative. Find all sorts of fun, client-specific ways to structure your coaching and for the needs of an individual client. Maybe you're working with someone who's really super busy, so you just have a 15-minute coaching session once every other week. Maybe there's someone where they really need a deep dive of mindset work. So you could create a weekend intensive for them, which might lead into ongoing coaching. Or maybe you just do a weekend intensive with them once per month. This is where you can start to brainstorm, see what other coaches are doing, look for cool ideas, imagine what kind of coaching lifestyle you want, what kinds of experiences you want to have, and what kind of experiences you want to create for your clients. And you can get creative. Also, at these higher levels, with the long duration coaching and with the creative coaching, you also get to be really creative with how you price this. Because you start to see, once you see that they're not paying for your time, you don't even have a concept of having an hourly rate anymore. You still might have that at an accounting level to make sure that you're making enough, but the more you lean into this territory, you're usually in prosperous coach territory, where you're making plenty, and really you're just trying to charge enough to have your clients be motivated. You're trying to find right-paying clients who are up to big things, where naturally the prices are going to be higher for them. And I'll say more about pricing money mindsets in other videos, other posts as well. So, stages, quickly in review. First of all, training. You're not in business at all yet. Then connecting, go out, learn how to meet people, find people who you can help and offer them free coaching. So lots of free coaching. And then when they start coming back to you, start charging a little bit at a time. Get used to charging for coaching. And then once you're charging a lot of people for coaching, you're starting to run out of time, they're enjoying the coaching, they keep on coming back, then try charging for durations of time. Start with maybe monthly coaching, and then gradually raise the duration of coaching that you like to do, so you get a sense of impact. And as your durations become longer, start mixing in some creative options. Try offering someone an intensive, just for the fun of it, just as an experiment. So, what stage are you currently at in your coaching program process, like in your progress as a coach in your coaching business right now? Which of these stages are you currently at? And chances are you're either trying to pretend that you're a little bit ahead of your current stage, or that you're a little bit behind the current stage. If you're a little bit ahead, you're sort of panicked, you think you should be way further ahead than you are. Slow down. Allow yourself to be at the stage you're at. Allow yourself to identify the skill sets that you're currently developing. Do whatever you need to do to make enough money to keep developing the current skill sets. And if you're actually, if you think you're a bit behind where you're actually at, it's probably time to step things up. Be a little bit bolder, have bigger offerings, ask for more money, make an experiment, see what happens. So, yeah, feel free to share with this post. Where are you currently at? And thanks.